this is Jacqueline from Lichen Sclerosus Support Network, where our mission is to empower people with lichen sclerosis by providing evidence-based education and support so that we can live in a world where those affected by lichen sclerosis are educated, informed, and get diagnosed early. If you find the information in our videos helpful, please consider donating your time or money so that we can continue making LS education and support. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about how to treat and how to manage when you're in an LS flare. So definitely, this is a big topic. When we do our LSSN virtual meetups, we always get questions. How do I treat when I'm in a flare? What do I do when I'm in a flare? How can I feel better when I'm in a flare and manage symptoms and all this? So we're going to be talking about that today, both again from a science-based perspective, and then I'm going to share my kind of lived experience and what's been helpful for me and what other people in the community find helpful. This is definitely going to be a very important video, as many of us will experience a flare at one point or other. So as always, if you find the information in this video helpful, please give us a like and please subscribe to our channel. And with that, let's jump into things. So if you're sitting here wondering, wait, what's a flare? Don't worry, we already covered that in our last video. So if you missed that, pause this video. I'll leave a card up here so you can check that video out. I will also leave it linked in the description box below. And in that video, we talked about what a flare is and what can trigger a flare. Really briefly, an LS flare is when your condition suddenly and significantly gets worse compared to your baseline. So if you want more information, again, go check out that video and then come back to this one. Okay, so how should you treat when you're in a flare? This is such an important question, and unfortunately, and this is a huge frustration of mine, there's very little guidance in the scientific literature on how to treat when you're in a flare. Why this is frustrating is because flares are very common for many people, and it can be really hard to find any guidance on what to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share from one paper. There is one paper that briefly outlines how to treat when you're in a flare. That's by Din et al. I will also leave that paper linked in the description box below if you want to go check it out. So I'll note what they say, and then I will talk about how I treat when I'm in a flare. Just to kind of, it's actually quite similar, but just to give a little bit of a comparison. So with Din et al., basically what they say, and it's very simple and straightforward, is if you're in a flare, they want you to kind of go back to the beginning, which means using your steroids every day, and they want you to use it daily until your symptoms basically significantly improve or disappear. And they say that that can take anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks. Again, remembering that we're all going to kind of respond to medication differently. It can also depend on how severe the flare is, how stressed you are, and a number of other factors. So let's switch over and talk about how I treat when I'm in a flare. So thankfully I haven't been in a flare for a while, but this is what I have done and what I would do if I'm in a flare. So let's say I'm in a flare, I go, okay, so I currently am on maintenance. Maintenance means that I use my steroids 2 times a week. I use it Monday and Thursday. I do this consistently every week, and I will for the rest of my life until a different and better treatment option comes out, or until the literature shows that that's unnecessary. But to date, all the literature supports this kind of maintenance use. So that's how I follow. So if I'm in a flare and I'm only treating twice a week, I'm going to go back to the beginning, like Din et al. Suggests, go back to the beginning and treat daily. So what I do is I essentially will treat daily for 1 week, and then I do a little check-in, right, with myself. And I say, okay, am I feeling better, worse, or the same? Now, if by 1 week my symptoms are already all gone, I might slowly start to taper down back to my maintenance. Now, if you know me, you know I like my baby steps. So if I did 1 week and I felt great and all my symptoms were gone, I'd probably do a second week of every other day. And then by the 3rd week, I would just go back into my maintenance of twice a week. Conversely, let's say I do that 1 week and I do my check-in and I'm not worse, I'm not better, I'm just kind of the same. So in that case, I'm going to do a second week of daily, and then I'm going to do my check-in again. If I'm better or things are completely improved, then I'm going to do again that same tapering back down. Now again, let's say I do the check-in and I'm actually getting worse. Then if I'm getting worse, I'm still going to continue daily for another week or two, and then I'm going to check in. Is anything improving? Am I staying the same, or am I getting worse? If things are improving, great. I might just have had a really tough flare that really needed a lot more heavy steroids in the beginning. Great. Slowly start towards tapering. If I'm not really getting better, but I'm not getting worse, again, I might continue for at least 4 full weeks of daily before reaching out to a healthcare provider. If, however, it's like 3 weeks of daily and I'm not personally getting any better, and in fact, I'm getting worse, that to me means I'm going to book a call with my healthcare provider. Why? Well, there's actually a multitude of reasons. One, that flare may not actually be an LS flare. You would be surprised how often people say, I'm in a flare, and they're in a flare for months and months and months, and they can't get out, and they finally go to see a vulvar specialist only to find out that they are having a severe dermatitis type reaction, which could be due to the steroids or something else, or that they have a very bad yeast infection. These two things are very, very commonly mistaken for a flare, and people just throw steroids, they get worse, until finally they go see a specialist to find out that actually they're not in an LS flare. They're dealing with something entirely different. So if I'm treating for an LS flare, and I've treated for 2 to 3 weeks daily, and I'm getting progressively worse, I absolutely want to go in and see what's going on to rule out a secondary condition. Now, if a secondary condition is ruled out, my next question might be, okay, so if this is a true LS flare, there's no secondary conditions, I'm treating daily, I'm getting worse. So what can we add on? What can we change? How can we modify my treatment plan to get me out of this flare? Does that mean using it 2 times a day? Do they want to do corticosteroid injections? Do they want to try a different medication altogether? Whatever it is, I want them to brainstorm different things to bring this treatment plan up to get me out of that flare. Now, when you are out of your flare, and things are better, your symptoms are almost gone or gone, or you're back to your baseline, that's when you can start tapering. Now, there's no real rule for tapering. I'll be really honest with you. Most of the healthcare providers that I've spoken to will say, just go straight back into your maintenance if that's what you are on. I am just a baby steps person, and it kind of makes me anxious. So I'll do like another week of every other day, and then I'll go into maintenance. But some people can jump right back into maintenance. And in fact, there was one flare that I had where I was able to squash it really fast by applying my medication daily. Within 4 days, I actually had no more symptoms, but I still did the full 7 days. And then after that, because I was feeling so fine, I just jumped right back into maintenance. Now, if you were doing every other day and then got a flare and you went back to daily, once you felt better, you're going to go back to every other day, still with the long-term goal of tapering you down to maintenance. So that's essentially how you're going to treat when you're in a flare. You're going to go back to square one, and you're going to treat daily for approximately 1 to 4 weeks. You're going to do those check-ins to help kind of give you some guidance on where you're at. And also those check-ins will help you to notice when and if you actually need to call your healthcare provider to see if there's something else going on, or to see if they need to make changes to your healthcare plan. Now, another important thing is if you are in a flare but you don't treat with steroids, let's say you treat with calcineurin inhibitors. I've never seen a flare protocol for calcineurin inhibitors. So I would advise you to call your healthcare provider and ask how they want you to treat. If you don't use topical calcineurin inhibitors or steroids, but say you treat and you use laser or some other form, then again, call whoever does that procedure and ask them for guidance on what you should do. They may suggest temporarily using a steroid. I can't make that decision. That's really going to be with your healthcare provider. But if you're doing anything else to treat that's not topical steroids, call your healthcare provider. Tell them that you're in a flare, that it's gotten significantly worse, and that you want guidance on what to do and how to treat during this period. All right, so of course, treatment is going to be a huge part of managing your flare and getting out of the flare, but there's more to just treatment, right? That's a really important piece of it, but there's other things that we can bring in to help manage our symptoms, manage the itch and the pain and the discomfort in the interim, because unfortunately, we don't have any medication or treatment option that can immediately, in that moment, just shut things down and turn it off completely, right? So even the best medications and treatment options out there will still take some time to work. So the question becomes, how can we manage and improve quality of life while we're in a flare? So I'm going to talk about some things that work for me. Again, everybody is different, so I always encourage people to share in the comments what they do when they're in a flare, what products they use, etc. Because we're all so individualized, it's nice to have a variety of options. So for me, I have both an itch and pain component to my LS, although arguably my pain component is way worse than the itch component. So for me, if I'm experiencing pain or itch, my number one go-to, God bless, is private packs. So private packs, you've probably heard me talk about these all the time because they are a freaking lifesaver. They are non-toxic gel pads that are made to fit the contours of the vulvar and perianal area. They kind of just hug that area. Now you can put them in the freezer to turn them into an ice pack, or you can either put them in the microwave or put them in like a bowl of hot water to heat them up to make them warm, so they become like a little hot compress. Now, usually when I'm in a flare, I'm not using the heat so much. I'm more going for the ice. So the ice can be really good to reduce inflammation, reduce itch, and reduce pain. For the itch piece, nothing has ever helped me like ice has. Ice has always been my best friend from day one. So I will leave a link in the description box below. If you want to get private packs, you can use the code, the Lost Labia Chronicles, for 15% off of your first order. And I'll leave all of that information down below. You don't necessarily have to use that brand. That's just the brand that I use and love. You can also just go on Amazon, see what else there is. You are also welcome. Actually, I think private packs in the States, you can get them at like Target and CVS, but you can only buy them in individual sizes. If you go online, you can get like a pack of them. I suggest the pack. I have like 5 or 6 in my freezer at any given time, and I basically use it like a conveyor belt. So like I'll use one, and then when it's no longer cold, I'll like swap it out, kind of thing. And they do come with protective sleeves, which is wonderful. So no matter what you use with respect to an ice pack, it needs a protective sleeve, okay, to make sure that you're not going to harm the vulva. The other thing I do, of course, is I'm going to be using a lot more barrier creams and balms and stuff like that. So these are 2 of my favorites. So if I have cuts and fissures, I'm going to use one of 2 things. I'm either going to use like Vaseline or Aquaphor, pop those here, or I'm going to use Sweet Spot Labs Rescue Balm. Now, if you've watched my video on emollients and barrier creams, you've watched me demo a lot of these products. I squeeze them out, I show how they apply, etc. So this one can be really nice if you have cracks or fissures going on, or tears. I really like it for that. If there's no cracks, fissures, or tears, I definitely want to make sure that I'm keeping the area super protected, super nourished, super hydrated. And then my go-to is FemSense Balm. Again, I do have a discount code for that. I will leave all of that information to get this product in the description box below. And just like the Rescue Balm, I also demoed this product in that emollients and salves and barrier cream video. So I'll leave that video below if you want to check that out and kind of see how the product applies first. But those are definitely my go-tos there. Another thing that I definitely use a lot when I'm flaring, not so much when I'm not flaring, but if I'm flaring, peri bottles. holy crap. Because when I flare, I tend to get a lot of cracks and fissures. That means when I urinate, when I pee, that pee gets into those open wounds and it burns and it stings and it is the worst. If you know what I'm talking about. If you've experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. You dread going to the bathroom. You absolutely dread it. And then even when you're done, it stings and lingers and it's so uncomfortable. So instead of using toilet paper that can be kind of abrasive and kind of tug at those, I use a Perry bottle, which I will put here. So it's basically this little push bottle. You've got water inside and it creates this really gentle stream of water. And so you can use that both while you're urinating to dilute the urine so that it's not as stingy and irritated, and then to clean instead of toilet paper, you'll use that to gently rinse off. I will also apply some Vaseline or barrier cream around that area before as well to kind of create a protective layer over those cuts and tears so that they're kind of safe from external irritants like urine. So I'll kind of combine those two. Definitely when I'm in a flare, a big thing I want to focus on is stress reduction. I know that for me, when I'm in a flare, that often reminds me or brings me back into my body, and it's kind of my cue of like, oh, okay, I'm on overdrive. I haven't been prioritizing my mental health. I haven't been prioritizing myself. I need to carve out time for stress reduction. So I'll do a lot of meditations, a lot of deep breathing. I'll do a lot of restorative yoga, and Penny's membership is a godsend for that, actually for all of that, because Penny has meditations, guided breath work. She has restorative practices. Again, I do have a 7-day free trial and then 30% off your first month. I will leave that in the description box below if you want to check out that membership. But that is definitely another thing that I do. I also try to really prioritize sleep, which can be really hard when you're in a flare. So if I'm flaring and there's an itch component, I might take a drowsy antihistamine to help reduce itch, but also help me get a better sleep. So really try to prioritize my sleep and get 8 hours when I'm flaring, because I really want my nervous system to settle again. So those are all really, really big pieces for me. Those are things that I kind of focus on when I'm in a flare. Now, I just wanted to mention a couple other things that I don't personally do, but I know that some other people do and that they find this really helpful. So I just wanted to kind of bring attention to that. So for people that have a pain component, some people like to get like either, and I'll pop some images up on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about, either get like a throw pillow or a donut pillow to sit. So a lot of times if people have a pain component, sitting on chairs can be really, really painful. So those types of, that kind of creates extra padding or takes pressure off the vulvar area. So some people really like that. You might need to temporarily modify parts of your home. So if you work from home, if you're able to get a standing desk or even just do a makeshift standing desk, like prop a bunch of textbooks and then put your computer on so that you're standing more and not sitting as much. So some people really find that helpful. And then another thing that I haven't done yet anyways, but that some people find helpful either for pain or for itch, is to get a prescription for topical lidocaine, which can temporarily numb the area. So if you're in a lot of pain or you're really itching, sometimes that can be really, really helpful. Now, depending on where you live in the world, you may be able to get that over the counter. Just be mindful that there's different percentages of lidocaine. And if you're buying over the counter, I would advise you to just have a quick chat with the pharmacist and just confirm that it is safe for the genitals. Just to be safe, that's what I recommend doing. That's what I would do if I were to buy it over the counter. I do have a prescription for lidocaine and I filled it and I've actually never used it. It's still in my drawer. It might even be expired at this point. I should probably check that after I film. But for me, having the topical lidocaine is more of like a security blanket. So it makes me feel safe and a bit more at ease, knowing that if I do flare and if things do get really, really bad, that I do have something that can help kind of numb things up temporarily. So I do know people that have lidocaine and they typically never use it unless they're in a really bad flare where they kind of just need to numb things out for a little bit. So if you struggle with flares and you want to look into that, definitely I encourage you to have a chat with your healthcare provider. All right, so in this video, we reviewed how to treat, what your treatment protocol looks like if you are in a flare, and then we talked about all these different kind of add-ons and adjuncts that you can bring in and things that you can do while you're in a flare to help kind of better manage your symptoms and overall quality of life. As always, I encourage you to share what you do in a flare, what helps you. Again, your comments, your suggestions, your shares are so incredibly helpful for others in the community, especially since LS is so individualized. There's no way I could capture everything that works for everyone on the planet, so it can be really nice for people to come together in the comments and see what works for other people and try it out and see if it helps them. So that is it for this video. We will catch you in the next one.